Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Come on, we can do better than that. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. To Dr. Sharfstein, I want to thank you for your very kind words. I also thank you for your leadership. To President Ron Daniels, to Dean Michael Flagg, and to everyone here, Dr. Leanna Wynn, and to everybody who has gathered here this morning. It is indeed my honor and my privilege to be here. I was running 4 minutes late because I was on the phone talking to my staff about a young lady who I met at Douglas High School 2 days ago. I wake up thinking about her. I go to bed thinking about her. And I just could not get her off of my mind. You see, our federal partners came to Douglas High School, the Secretary of Education, the Secretary of Labor, and others to hear what the young students at Douglas High School had to say. And they put us in these small groups, about 10 students and 3 folks from the government. And this little girl sat beside me, and she basically caused my heart to bleed. We were asking them why were they upset, because they had already told us they were upset. And when they got round to her, she said, I've been admitted into Virginia Commonwealth University. She said, they're giving me $2,000, but it's going to probably cost me $15,000 to go. Anybody familiar? And then she said, this has been my dream. I just want to walk into my destiny. She said, but I feel as if I have been cheated. And I just can't get there. And I went up to her and I asked her the question, did you apply to Morgan? She said, yeah, I applied to Morgan. And she said, I have a 3.4 average, but my SAT scores were not high enough to get into Morgan. And the next thing I know, when we were meeting, she started crying, almost screaming. And I could hear her cries at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because I tried to remember what it felt like when I sat in the special ed class, trying to be a lawyer, wanting to see a future but was blinded by what I saw. And so I was late this morning. I had breakfast, first of all, with somebody to help her. A member of the business community had told me, Elijah, whatever I do, I promise you, I will not let this day go by without guaranteeing that young lady a college education for 4 years. But not everyone has the congressman. Not everyone gets that chance to sit down and talk, and not everyone expresses, Dr. LaVisse, the other things that she said. She said, I'm doing okay, but she said, so many of my classmates feel as if they have been cheated. They feel as if they are sitting in a warehouse And speaking of warehouses, there's the school that I worked with, Maritime Academy. And literally, when I heard about the Maritime Academy and I started working with it 9 years ago, it literally was housed in a warehouse. This is America. We are better than that. We are better. And so you ask yourselves the question, what does this have to do with public health? When you've got children who are walking around who are depressed by what they see every day and feel as if there is no way out. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot that we have to do. I've often said that we have, as adults, have two major responsibilities. One, to help our children understand their gifts and then help them nurture them so they might be in a position to deliver those gifts to the world. So I've come here this morning. I'm excited about that little girl. I didn't even remember her name. So I had to get my staff to, that's why I was on the phone. I made this major deal and didn't even know her name. But I knew her pain. So I think what has happened too often over the last many, many years is that, you know, when Sharfstein, Dr. Sharfstein, who I love and admire, when he was talking about the things that I had done, you know, I forget the stuff I do. I just do it. I don't need an award. I really don't. But Dr. Sharfstein, one of the things that he didn't mention was Katrina. When Katrina took place, think about Katrina. Here you are, Katrina. People going 5 days without bread or water. Baton Rouge is a little bit further from New Orleans than D.C. is from Baltimore. Baton Rouge was dry. People were drowning in their own urine. In New Orleans. And for 5 days, we could not get bread, a loaf of bread, or an apple, or some bottled water. Think about that. You in D.C., people drowning in Baltimore, and for 5 days. Did you notice something interesting? When you went down, by the way, now coming back to Baltimore, I'm taking you somewhere. Just follow me. Did you notice when you went down to Whole Foods, when the troopers were here? Did you see all of them? You see 50 troopers and National Guardsmen in one block being paid. And I understand the security concerns. And then you went by the aquarium and you see hundreds lined up being paid. And you ask yourselves the question, what is it that we value? Do we value human beings being developed, becoming all that God meant for them to be so that they can nurture their gifts, nourish their gifts, and deliver their gifts? And so what do we have to do? Going back to Katrina, and I want the students to understand this. Oh my God, if I don't get anything through to you today, I beg you to hear me. I remember Katrina, and I think about how people were saying, yes, if we have a problem, in New Orleans, we've already practiced. We are ready. We are ready to go. We're ready for every emergency. We've got our communications intact. We've got our first aid intact. We know how to get people out of the area safely. And they went on and on and on and on. And they said these words, when the rubber meets the road, you will see that we are in good shape. Well, when it came time for the rubber to meet the road, there was no road. The reason why I talk about this, students, is that I want you to go out there and pursue excellence and be what you say you are. Be what you say you are. Pursue your passion, whatever it is. Go after it with everything you've got because our lives depend on it. You know who I'm talking about. The teacher that you'll never forget. You know, your little sixth grade teacher. The one that used to copy stuff, and she didn't have it. She didn't have, the books may have been old or whatever, and so she went to a copier and bought in Time magazine articles and stuff. The one that took you on field trips and went into her own pocket. Y'all know her? Do y'all know her? Do you know her? All right. Don't leave me out here by myself. Those were people who had passion for what they were doing. And what I'm saying to you, I don't care what you learn at Hopkins. You got to take what you get here at Hopkins, take it outside these walls, and operate with passion. The other day, this is not the speech I intended to give. Just hang with me. The other day, Dr. Sharfstein, I rent this car, and this guy came up to me and said, "Hey, Cummings, I'm going to talk to you. You got to remember, I live in the inner city, so I'm going to tell you how he said it, all right? Hey, Mr. Cummings, man, you know, Mr. Cummings, that's some bad rims, man." He was looking at the rims on the car. I don't know anything about rims. He said, "Man, you better put a lock on them rims, man, because those rims are some serious rims." He said, and then he got on his knees, and he said, "You see this little scratch here, Mr. Cummings? And then he took out a toothbrush and some toothpaste, and he brushed it off, took a little rag. He said, bingo, the scratch was gone." And he went on to talk about rims and how much he thought of rims. I said, this boy is all up into these rims. But his passion was so great. And I said, "What do you do?" "Oh, I work for the rim store." But he knew everything about rims. And you know what I said? I walked away from him, Sharfstein, and I said to myself that if I need some rims, that's who I want to go to because he knows rims. And he has a passion about it. It's what drives him. It's what makes him happy. Well, I want a heart surgeon that loves hearts. Don't give me the rim man for the heart. I don't want you to miss the point. You got to let your passion drive you. Our country, I worry, has gone into a mode, in many instances, of mediocrity, where people say it's okay not to be the best you can be, where they say it's okay not to pursue your passion. And the reason why I'm saying that is that when we are dealing with health, and whether people live or die, we need people who have a passion for health. And, this morning, Sharfstein, when I was talking to that little girl who I didn't even know, I knew that it would bring me so much joy to see her get a scholarship. But you know what else I knew? I knew that if she graduated and she invited me to her graduation, even if I were voting on that day, I would say, "Excuse me, I have to go to Virginia Commonwealth University because there is somebody who has made me happy doing what I do And they accomplished what they had to accomplish because I know that when I'm dead and gone, they still will carry on and they'll remember somebody cared about them. And that's how we all have to remember that. So now let's go back, come back to the city. Let's drive back. We're now in the city. I told the story the other night about how I was on the corner at North in Pennsylvania. And this is another lesson for our students. I know you want to deliver policy, but always make sure you understand who you're delivering policy to. See, a lot of people who never step foot in an area, they suddenly become experts on people. Hello. They suddenly become the experts. Oh, I got my PhD from Hopkins. And I've read this book, and I've studied the Negro. And I have the perfect solutions. After all, when I was at Hopkins, I used to go to Chipotle, and I would see the Negro around. We'd stand in the same line and have a chat or two. You don't know me. Don't know my pain. People called him up to me and said, Elijah, why did you cry? Why did you cry on national TV? Why'd you do that? Because I felt their pain. I felt their pain. So, lesson number one. If you don't know folk, don't assume you know them. So often people come in riding on a white horse. I'm going to save you. But I think you need to take a look at models that work. One of the things I like about the Healthy Start program is they are smart. That's a smart program. How many of you all know about Healthy Start? Very good. As you know, with Healthy Start, Dr. Sharfstein, they take women who usually live in the neighborhood. Are y'all familiar? By the way, and most of the women have had babies. Hello? And these women who live in the neighborhood then go to other women who might be pregnant and say, girl, you better get on and see a doctor. You don't want to wait till 8 months. You better go see a doctor. I'll go with you. I'm saying it like they say it. I'll go with you. What you doing drinking, girl? That's gonna hurt that baby. What you doing smoking, girl? That's gonna hurt that baby. Now, it may seem like something you need a PhD for that. No. But people have to realize that you're not looking down on them. They have to realize that you are trying to lift them up. But you know what? The interesting thing about those women is that they have been mothers. They've been pregnant. I cannot tell a woman who's pregnant what morning sickness is like. I ain't never been pregnant. That reminds me of Daryl Issa. I'd never forget, and then I'm going to move on. Daryl Issa. Are you waving or what? Were you waving? Oh, Daryl Issa. Daryl Issa, this is an interesting story. When we were talking about contraception, Daryl Issa, I said, Issa, he was the chairman, I'm the ranking member. I said, Daryl, I got to have some women on the panel, man. This is about contraception. No. We will not have any women. We're going to have a priest and four gentlemen. And I'm like, I said, but Daryl, this is contraception, brother. No, we will not do that. So what does he do? We have five men talking about contraception. And then he said Sandra Fluke was not qualified to talk about contraception. Are you following what I'm saying? Don't assume. And Sandra Fluke eventually became famous because she wanted to stand up and she could talk about contraception. She could talk about what women go through. She could talk about her classmates over at Georgetown. She could talk about the problems that they have. But the men didn't have a clue. What I'm saying to you is make sure that you at least get to know who you're dealing with. Number two, y'all do a lot of research. I mean, y'all be researching. What happened to all them doctoral papers that you all do? No, I'm serious. Yeah, where are they? You have to go through your theses, and you have to be interviewed, and you have to, so what? The question is, and I say this to Hopkins, how do we take our research and apply it to people's lives on a daily basis? What Sharfstein was talking about, see, I tell all my proteges, people always ask me, how do you look at politics? I said, politics has two tracks. One track is policy. Another track is touching people where they live. And some kind of way, we got to take the policy and make sure we touch the people. So we spend all of this time, paper after paper after paper, interview after interview after interview, thesis after thesis after thesis. And we got the experts talking to each other. Oh, I know this and I know that. While people are dying. People are dying. But you got your doctorate. You got your master's. But I beg you to find ways to take what you learn and touch people where they live once you get to know them. Number three. I beg you to do something else. And this is going to sound kind of different. I beg you to understand that everything that happens to you happens for a reason. I believe that. I believe that, I tell my children, everything that happens to you up until this moment, good, bad, and ugly, prepares you for this moment. Every experience. And let me break that down. And we have a tendency sometimes to curse our lives. But we should never ask when the difficulties come, why did something happen to me? We should ask the question, why did it happen for me? Let me break that down. We watched our state's attorney make a very difficult decision. And it was a very difficult decision. And I'm not going to get into the case at all, just going to say she made a difficult decision. But if you ever trace her history, you know that her mother and father were policemen. You also know that her grandfather was a policeman. You also know that at 14 years old, she watched a relative be gunned down and killed in front of her. Follow the story. At 14, as a result of seeing her relative shot down, she made the decision at 14 that she was going to become what? A prosecutor. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the lesson in that. Out of her pain came her passion to do her purpose. Out of her pain came her passion to do her purpose. Tweet that. Out of her pain came her passion to do her purpose. Pain, passion, purpose. Pain, passion, purpose. I guarantee you half of the public health students in here experience some pain. I guarantee you, Dr. Platt. It may have been a grandmother who they watched die of cancer. It may have been the brother who suffered from AIDS. It may have been the best friend who went through some mental condition where they did not even know who he was anymore. But I guarantee you, half of us are here because we suffered some pain. If you fall in that category, would you raise your hands? Dr. Clark, you need to see this. Turn around. Look and see this. Isn't that interesting? Why do I raise the issue? And I'm finished. This was definitely not the speech I intended. I talked about this the other night at Hopkins. As I get older, I think more and more about, I ask myself, Elijah, I have these reunions with myself. Amen. Let me take a sip on that. I have these reunions with myself where I go and I say, Elijah, it's time for us to meet. It's time for us to have a conference. And as the boys on my street say, me, myself, and I, we all get together. And the thing that I think about the most is, what is it that brings me happiness? And this is a lesson that doesn't only apply, what I'm talking about now does not only apply to health care and health for people, but it also applies to your personal life. What I have discovered in my meetings is that a lot of times we take for granted the things that make us happy. The child who takes their first steps, happiness. Anybody familiar? The child who, particularly your first child, when they're not saying anything, they haven't learned to talk yet, and you're wondering what they're thinking, and then they start talking, and you're happy for about a month. And then you can't shut them up. That's happiness. Happiness comes, I told my daughter, I have a daughter who's 33, and she's a public relations specialist, and she came to me the other day, and about 2 months ago, and she takes me to dinner every month. And, she always takes me to these real nice restaurants. She makes more money than I do. But she said to me, Selwyn, she said, Daddy, I know you struggled to put me through school, and I have something for you. So she hands me a check for $1,000. And I almost fell out of my seat. I said, what is this for? She says, I want to pay you back. She said, I decided that I want to pay you back. I said, you can't pay me back. You've already paid me. I said, you are a gift that keeps on giving. You are a gift that keeps on giving. I said, every step of the way when I saw you graduate from Howard University, happiness. When I saw you come out of the University of Maryland School of Public something, policy, happiness. When you call me and tell me about all the accomplishments you have, happiness. I said, I enjoy watching the woman you have become. A gift that keeps on giving, happiness. And then she said something that just blew my mind. I tore up the check, gave it back to her. But this is what she said. She says, and I'm taking you somewhere. Just hang with me. She says, Daddy, I just want you to know. She said, when I see you, I see me. When I see you, I see me. I said, girlfriend, I'm going to give you a check. Happiness. Where am I going with this? You will go into a profession where you will see problems marching at you all the time. Sharfstein will tell you, Sharfstein has dealt with some very difficult situations. Clagg has dealt with difficult situations. Whenever, as you rise higher in your career, you have more problems just coming at you. And sometimes they seem that they will never stop. You know why they seem like they'll never stop? Because you're dealing with the public. And there are a lot of public problems. And you'll get tired sometimes. You'll get discouraged sometimes. Sometimes you will feel like you need to give up. But sometimes you need to back off of it. And remember those moments that because of your work, you changed somebody's life. And you must remember in those moments that it brought you happiness. Why am I talking about this? You must guard what makes you happy. So often people go through life believing that the persons that are recipients of their gifts are getting the most out of it. No, baby. Usually it's you. Particularly if you have a passion for it. And so as we close, I leave you with this. I come back to where I started. The little girl who simply wanted to be somebody. Feeling cheated. The little boys that I talked to. You know what they asked for? There are two things. I've interviewed probably 150 kids over the last week. There are two things that in almost every single conversation: education and recreation. Education and recreation. Mr. Cummings, we don't have anything to do. So what one little boy said to me, and I will never forget it as long as I live, it haunts me. I will go to my grave being haunted by what he said because I feel it. He said, sometimes I feel like I'm in a casket and I'm clawing my way out. Our country is better than that. Others once said, I feel cheated. I wanted to become a doctor, and I realized that I'm not reading on the level that I need to read on. And so what I've decided to do, I'm working with the mayor. Matter of fact, when I leave here, I'm meeting with the mayor. And we're going to talk about long-term solutions and short-term solutions. We're going to make sure that every child who wants a summer job gets one. Every one of them. I'm going to recommend to the mayor that we look at our plans for recreation and that we try to make it so that children can walk within 10 to 12 blocks and get to a recreation center that is fit to be in. I want to talk about the children who are now in school and are coming out of the 3rd grade not being able to read. Talk about how we need to put a mirror up to ourselves and ask the question, are we failing our children? And doing something about it. I want to talk about the ones that are in the 9th grade, reading on a 3rd and 4th grade level. How do we bring remediation to them so that we save them? I want to talk about the systemic problems in our system. I want to talk about the police and the idea of respect. Police respecting the people that they serve. And I don't want you to get the wrong, I want you to hear me. Listen to me carefully as I close. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot police our way out of our problems. We can't. You can't just not fail to give somebody an education and then lock them up. Let me tell you what the boys on the street say to me. Keep in mind, I live in the inner city, so I get all the scoops. The guy came up to me the other day. I said, where you going? Man, Mr. Cummings, I'm going down to see, you remember my cousin Jimmy. You remember Jimmy. Jimmy used to live up, on Bolton Street. Oh, yeah, I remember Jimmy. I didn't remember, but yeah, you remember Jimmy. Jimmy, man, he got some long time, man. Mr. Cummings, can you do me a favor? Mr. Cummings, when you go to Washington, I want you to do me a favor, man. Tell them that we don't understand what they're doing. My boy Jimmy, my cousin, is serving all his time in jail for selling marijuana. And then I turn on the television, Mr. Cummings, and in Colorado, they buying it with cash and television cameras rolling. There are people who look at our system of governance with regard to policing and say, this is not fair. One person sits in jail for years, another one walks into the store, $1,000 in his hand, selecting from 35 different types of marijuana. And then you ask the question, why are people upset? And so, I'm finished. I am. And I want you to understand the things that I've talked about. You're gonna get your lessons because you're in one of the greatest schools in the world. But ladies and gentlemen, one of the things I learned from being on that corner the other night, it ain't just about smarts. It's not just about what you learn in these walls. Because when you got people who are in pain and they think that you don't understand, I'm almost finished, Upstein. Just give me a minute. You asked me to come, then you want me to leave. Just give me a minute. Just kidding. We go way back. Anyway. But they gotta feel that you feel their pain. Other than that, they don't want to hear it. And the reason why the policing piece, the Freddie Gray case, has such a relationship with all this, there are a lot of relationships between the systemic problems, the things that I've talked about in healthcare and education and recreation, connected with that. But let me hook you up with a piece that a lot of people don't realize. And I got this from listening to Douglas students. Listen to what they say. When they saw what happened, let's put it like this. When they heard about what was admitted, not strapping somebody in with a seatbelt and not rendering aid, and then we're told that he basically killed himself. This is what they said to me. They said, Mr. Cummings, we feel, when we heard that, it's like he said, people think we're stupid. But this is the piece that really got me. They said some people think we're stupid because they think that we think that we're prepared to get that job. That they think that we think that we're prepared to take on certain responsibilities if we're not reading on a certain level. And he said, and this is what they said. They said, you wonder why there's distrust? We hear people talk about Freddie basically killing himself, and we looking at each other and say, well, wait a minute, do they think we're stupid? And then they say, people act like we are fine and we're not fine. Do they think that we're stupid? I didn't say that, they said it. And so it is. I say to my colleagues in the Congress and everywhere I go, that I want them to want for the children on Madison Avenue in my block. I want them to want and work for the same kind of education they want for their kids. I want them to want it for the kids that are in my block. The same kind of recreation that they want for their kids, I want them to want the same kind of recreation for the kids in my block. And if we can move towards a society where we're all marching together, realizing that our destinies are intertwined, then we will be a better nation. But I want to thank you all. I want to thank every one of our public health students and faculty, because you have made a decision. You have made a decision that is bigger than you. You made a decision that you want to touch a lot of lives. And I know it's not a lot of money in public health. I know it's not. I hope that's not news. Many of you are saddling yourself with a lot of debt. But I just want to thank you. I want to thank you. And all I've come here to beg you to do everything in your power. And the things that I've talked about, I just want you to be most effective and efficient in what you do. I don't want you to get frustrated and feel like you have to give up, because you're too valuable. You've come to one of the greatest institutions in the world, and you've equipped yourself, and you had the experiences in life, and you've been driven by your passion, and you realize it's bigger than you, and you're going to make a difference. And I've come here to encourage you and to thank you for what you are doing. Last but not least, one of the statements that I made, and I make it often now, when I look at the life expectancy of African American men, at 64, I realize that I'm marching towards the evening of my life. I understand it. Marching slowly towards the evening of my life. But I remember all the time how people like you, all along my life, helped me get to where I got to. Coming out of special ed, becoming a lawyer, becoming a member of the Congress of the United States of America, coming from parents who only had a third-grade education. That's the America that I want. That's the America that you want. That's the America that we together will bring about. We are moving towards a more perfect union. And as I close, I say it over and over again, as I march towards the evening of my life, I just want my children and their children's children to have a morning. Just want them to have a morning. Don't want them to fight the same fights over and over again. Don't want them to be left behind. Don't want their gifts to be locked up in a casket. Don't want them to be talking about feeling as if they're in a casket trying to claw their way out. We are better than that. I didn't mean to get excited, but thank you.